Welcome to Linda's Corner. My name is Linda Bjork. Today we're going to be talking about the power of giving and why givers earn 3 times more income than takers. I'm delighted to have a special guest with me today, E.A. Solkovitz. E.A. is the founder and patriarch of Givers University, where they help people develop a giver's culture, which can be immediately used for business, social, and family relationships. And I'm really excited to hear his message. E.A., thank you so much for joining with me today.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be here and share with your listeners, and thank you for having me on such a wonderful podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. I visited the Givers University website, and you talk about the advantages of being a giver. Would you please explain what is a giver and what is a taker?
That's such a great question. Thank you. And it's one of the things that we have realized no one else is teaching. No one else is teaching. We hear people talk about the importance of self-improvement, and that's certainly very, very important. But where's the training that says, these are the kind of people you want to have close to you, and these are the kind of people you may want to be respectfully distancing yourself from? And that's really the focus of what we do at Givers University is, first of all, we love everybody. Across the board, I want to emphasize that, we love everybody. And we distinguish the difference between the person who we love and the deeds which we may not love. And the intent is then to teach people how to discern and what to look for as they develop relationships so that they can begin to think, you know what, this person's doing this, and to teach them what to look for. And I want to pull this person closer into my life. I want to have them be a part of my giver community. And this person consistently does this. And, I may not want to be a part of that. And I may want to think about respectfully distancing myself because I'll be stamping out fires all the time if I bring them in close. And so we teach people the methodologies and specifics. Look for this.
That's wonderful. So what is a giver? I'm assuming it's somebody who gives, but can you be a little more specific?
Yes, for sure. It's one of those things that everyone sort of thinks when you say, all right, what's a giver? Everyone sort of knows what it is, but if you ask them to define it without using the word give, they're not able to do it. And the same thing with a taker. You say, define what a taker is without using the word take. And we have a definition of that. And I use as the example of when we learn something, we can get into the specifics of it. Like if someone asked me, what's the definition of faith? I can give you a definition without using the word faith. Faith is the assured expectation, the evident demonstration of reality, though not beheld. That's faith, right? And when we talk about a giver, what we do is we mention that a giver is a person who has deeds that are coming from a place of wisdom, wealth, and wellness all of the time.
Okay.
And a taker is a person who's coming from a position of defeatism, disruption, and destruction all of the time, which we refer to those as the 3 Ds of a taker. And so we get into what are each one, what's defeatism? And how does that impact us when we have these people close? And Linda, so many times people today don't think about the importance of those that are around them. And do you remember, I remember when I was a child that when you hung out with someone, next thing you know, you'd say some of the phrases they said. And we used to have a thing that would say, you owe me a Coke. If you said the same thing they did, right? And that shows that these things rub off on us. And when we have the right kind of people and we learn how to discern what are the deeds we should be watching for. And then this all came about because of my 3 greatest defeats in my life. And each defeat caused me to write a book. Not only to get my head around the defeat, but then to sort of learn how can I avoid being in this position again? Because, my first defeat brought about the giver's mindset, how a giver thinks, which is different than how a taker thinks, that they're wired in a certain way. A giver, which represent about 20% of the population, Linda, if you put them in any situation, no matter what it is, in a short period of time, they will figure out how to give to it and how to contribute to it more than anyone else is. They're wired that way. They do it. By contrast, the taker, which represents 20% of the population, the other extreme, will, within a certain time period, figure out how to take morally, spiritually, mentally, financially. They're wired to take, and that's what they do. Everything they do is me first, self-orientation. And the 60% in the middle, we call them fencers. And Linda, those are the people that sit on the fence. They act like givers when they were givers. They act like takers when they were takers. And they're great relationships, but we need to pay attention to them and manage them because they could be in temporary giver or taker mode at any one time. So in the giver's mindset, we teach them, what are the 25 do's that givers do? What are the 25 do's that takers do? Watch for these things because it's a reflection of their mindset. It's a reflection of what their thought process is, and that will help you discern, do I want this person a part of my giver community? Or should I be respectfully distancing myself because of what they're going to bring with that I'll be dealing with all of the time?
So are we hoping to be able to find that 20% that are givers? Do we have to figure out what we are first, or does that not matter?
It happens automatically because going through the list of, the 25 do's, if you will, in the first book, and then in the second book, which is called The Giver's Lifestyle, brought about because of a second major defeat in my life, the Giver's Lifestyle identifies what are the 30 habits. What are the 30 things that givers consistently do over and over again? And what are the 30 things that takers do over and over again that we can spot? And when we look for these things, and in the book also we talk about the importance of self-reflection too. As we go through the list, look in the mirror at the same time and saying, am I doing these things? And that helps us discern whether we're on the giver side or taker. And I emphasize again, Linda, we're not labeling people. We love everybody.
We're labeling their behaviors.
And no one teaches us, be discerning. Distance yourself from when we think about the impact that people around us have, we just don't invest enough time thinking about the impact they're having on us or we're having, because we're all caught up in how fast life is today, and it's a blur. And the next thing you know, and people are saying, well, work on yourself, but that's only a third of it. The other 2/3 are those that are around us and how we're interacting in those relationships, whether they be social, business, family, and what do we look for? And then the third really thing that happened in my life, which was my third major defeat, brought about what's called the giver's lifelong learning. And there we get into the 4 critical questions. The questions that a giver should ask themselves before they make any decision and before they do any actions that will help them almost seem as though they can foretell what the end result will be because they've asked themselves these questions. And it helps guide us. See, these are the things, Linda, I've been through so many self-improvement programs, and I love it. I invest an hour a day self-improvement. But no one teaches us, how about the other guy? Sometimes it's not us. Sometimes it's just not us. We're doing it right, and other people may be bringing with them the things that we don't want to have in our life. And how do we do that? Not judgmentally, because we love everyone, but so that our life can be as happy and productive and exceptional. And part of that equation is having a giver community around us, which we also teach people how you build. How do you build your own giver community? What do you do? What do you look for? And these people that you bring in really super close, and the people that you want to have a part of your community, but they're part of your giver community, they may not be the super close people, if you will. And I've got to tell you, it's been responded to so excellent because people say, you know what, wow, this is great. No one talks about this stuff. And I said, well, I'm talking about it because of the stepping stones I had to live through that were huge defeats, the kind that are humiliating, and I realized, man, I got to stop being in these positions. How do I do that? And that brought about Givers University and this whole series of 3 books that's called Give to Be Great.
I like that. I love the idea. I love the whole thing. So you talk a lot about how we surround ourselves with people, and I think you talked about having a mentor, someone that was with you who kind of helped you get started. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It came about actually because, I was humble beginnings, son of a milkman. Back then, milk came in glass gallon jugs. And my dad, along with me at 5 years old, would deliver them to people's houses in the morning before they woke up in this box outside their house. And then later on, I became a janitor and worked for a janitorial service. And I was able to be bonded. It means an insurance would cover me. And because of that, one of the accounts our service had was for June Martino, who had the third most controlling stock in McDonald's hamburgers. And so I cleaned her house. And here, I mean, this was just, I mean, I'd love to clean the garage because I could pull the Rolls Royce in and out. And I thought, man, people live like this. I mean, she looks like a regular person, but how in the world did that happen? So when the day was right, Linda, and I could tell she was in extra good mood. And she knew me. I was in there every week. She knew at a glance, and we would say hi, and that was it, So she was in an extra good mood. And I went up to her. I said, June. She looked at me. She said, yes. She was actually very cordial, very easy to talk to. I said, could you tell me about it? And she said, what? I said, the whole McDonald's thing. Linda, she put her arm around me, took me in the kitchen, and the entire day told me the entire story from the very beginning when Ray couldn't even afford to pay her. And he paid her in stock in a worthless company, and she stayed with him. And I mean, all the things that weren't portrayed in that movie with Michael Keaton, there was a lot more to it. And, that was very Hollywoodized. But when you hear it from the person's mouth who was there, the Ray Kroc's personal secretary. In fact, she's in the movie, June Martino. He talks to June all the time. That's her. That's not really her. It's an actress portraying her, but that was the woman I was talking to.
I'm going to have to see the movie again.
Yeah, it's quite enlightening, if you will. And again, it's Hollywoodized, the drama, et cetera, that really, it was not that way in many ways. But the interesting thing the reason I bring that is because June, I asked her one question. June, I'm a janitor. I look forward to that paycheck on Friday. If I don't get it, I'm not showing on Saturday. I need the paycheck. Why did you work for a man for worthless stock? And I could tell I asked her a question no one else had asked her before. And she looked right at me, but I could tell she went far away because no one had ever asked her other than this little snot-nosed 16-year-old asked her that question. Why'd you do it? And she looked back after about 10 seconds, and it seemed like an hour. And she just stared at me, and it was sort of spooky. And I still remember the answer, and it made the way, not only what she said, but the way she said it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck because she said it with such feeling. She said, because I believed in Ray.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa, I need to find me a Ray Kroc. I need to find a Ray Kroc that I could believe in because I'm a burnt out janitor, and it wasn't a couple of months later, I met my business mentor who became my Ray Kroc and taught me about business and taught me down this path and started to rewire some of those janitor burnt out wires in my head and put me down my path. And it was such a blessing. I was so blessed to have him in my life for so many years. He became the father I never had, even though I had a father, and I was like the son he never had, even though he had a son. We were truly that close.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity, great blessing.
You're very fortunate.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. That's for sure. So I met Sam and started to work for him. He offered me a job. I started to work for him in a short period of time, and then and began the tutelage, if you will, of rewiring in my thought process, which was the first step. How was I thinking? My mindset was the mindset of a janitor, of a son of a milkman. My success is already laid out. People will always make messes, and I'll always be able to clean them up. And therefore, my future is all set. And my highlight of my day will be trying to get free songs in the bowling alley as I clean it at 2:00 in the morning. And that was the thing. That's that was it. And
thinking big.
yeah, exactly. And so that was my mindset. But see, that's where I was coming from. And our mindset, Linda, shows up symptomatically, but not causal. In other words, I use the example. If someone had a cold, they may have a runny nose or itchy eyes, and those are symptoms. The cold is the cause of those symptoms. And that brings us to this whole giver's taker labeling the deeds, not the person, identity kind of thing. Because when we see the symptoms that we should be looking for, watch for the runny nose, watch for the watery eyes, then we know they have a cold. And so those symptoms are the things we teach. Observe, be discerning, and you'll be so much happier because of all the time, the sorrow and despair you won't need to go through, and my defeats in my life and my betrayals in my life from people and entities that caused me to learn these things so I could stop it from happening in my life. And I pray that your listeners are able to just sort of get the feel and start to put together a giver-taker awareness so that they start becoming aware and asking themselves the right kind of question. And the payoff is there. They earn more income. They're more productive. They're happier. When you think about all the things we deal with all day, think about all the negative or challenging things we deal with and how much they have to do with other people. And I submit to you, it's usually almost, not all, but mostly all of them.
Yeah.
Certainly 2/3 or more.
At least.
So what if we could manage those and learn how to do that? And that's why we're so happy about the message we can bring with Givers University. And we even have a quiz that we love to have people take. That's a 7-question quiz on what's your giver-taker awareness IQ. And it's actually very informative. They get sort of an assessment, how is your awareness? And should you be working on that, or are you doing really good?
And where do they find that, EA?
giversuniversity.info. And actually, when they go there, it pops up the first question. They're on the quiz. And it's only 7 questions. And they'll get, and over the next couple of days, we'll send them some great tools because we're givers. We love to invest in relationships. Because one of the things we teach, Linda, which it's interesting because I just had a conversation with someone about this last night. And they said, what do you do when people step all over you? When you give and give and give, and it's like they take advantage of you. And I said, there's the distinction right there. When you're a giver, people may take advantage of you, but you are never diminished. People may take advantage of you, but you're never diminished. Keep giving, because it will come back in other ways from other sources, not that person who you felt was stepping all over you. And that's why givers win over and over and over again. And in business, I've had business people that I made them so obligated to do business with me, Linda, because I invested so heavily. They would have felt morally, in a deficit if they didn't do business with me, because I'd helped them so many ways and didn't want anything for it. She said, hey, I want you. You're a great person. You have a great business. I want to invest in you. I want to invest my time. I want to contribute. And boy, I'll tell you, the doors that open, Linda, for people that do that, because everyone's saying me first. I got to, what's in it for me? Pay me, then I'll go to work. And I say, well, look at the end result of that. The end result is defeatism, disruption, and destruction, the 3 Ds of takers.
And I think the giving has to be authentic and sincere without that expectation of return. Because a lot of times when we see, I'm going to give you this, my brain automatically thinks, oh, they're after something. They're trying to get something out of me. So there has to be a trust that I am genuinely giving because I care about you, or whatever.
Linda, you're right on. And that's so true. And I call it the test of time. Over the test of time, people then begin to realize, hey, you know what? Linda's really that way. She's not doing that because she has a predetermined, pre-contrived, or crafted expectation or reciprocal expectation. She's doing it because that's the way she is. You know what? I want her closer in my life. And the test of time distinguishes us from those who craft in advance, the takers, who can look in giver mode, what we call a temporary giver mode. And, what to be watchful when they're doing that, but there's certainly an ulterior motive every step of the way. And time tells the truth.
I like that. Time tells the truth. So you had a chance, you met your mentor, and then did everything just go smooth after that? Or did your 3 major challenges come after you met Sam?
Well, they actually came after meeting him. Would you like me to just touch on each one of them? The 3
would you
different
please?
Defeats? Yeah. The first one was astonishing. This one is, when I tell the story, people go, how in the world did it happen? Many years ago, they had things called voice recording machines. And when someone would call you on the touchpad phone, these are all things, we don't even see anymore.
Back in the olden days.
Yeah. Back in the day, right? When people, they could leave a message. And it was I had this little machine that had a cassette tape on one side that was my pre-recorded outgoing message. Hello, thanks for calling. And the other tape was 60 minutes, and that's where all the messages went, right? And this was a little machine sitting on a desk, and it was the latest technology of the day, right? And so I left left home for about an hour and a half and came back, and my message 60-minute tapes was totally filled up. I thought, oh man, kids were playing around with it because it happened a lot. Kids would get on it and record, and they feel they could, leave messages and just screw around with it. It was amazing what had happened. I owned a training company at that time while being mentored separately by my business mentor. And the training company was called ICANN Unlimited. It was doing very well. We had offices all over the Midwest, instructors doing trainings for other companies. And my business partner someone was calling him, and I could hear the tone in the background. It was like a beep, beep. While he was leaving me a message on my recorder, on my machine, I could hear the tone in the background that someone was calling him. And he hit the receiver so fast on his phone, and my machine is voice actuated, meaning as long as someone's talking, it'll keep recording. He put the next phone call he had on recording with my machine, and it recorded the whole conversation. And the conversation with whom he was talking to was how they were going to systemically take over and take me out of the picture of the company.
Oh, my.
So I thought, and let me tell you, Linda, when you hear it in their own words, it has a whole nother dimension. It's not third-party stuff. I'm hearing it in their words, a whole hour conversation. I thought, man, what are the odds of this? First of all, what are the odds of him calling me at that time? Who knows what those are? Secondly, leaving me the message. Thirdly, that particular guy calling right when he was leaving me the message. And then if he called them, they could have talked about golf. Why that particular conversation? I was devastated. I couldn't believe it. I thought, you gotta be kidding me. And I realized that I was thinking the wrong thoughts. I wasn't looking at the things I should have been looking at because I was always a benefit of the doubt kind of person, if that makes sense.
Of course.
And that's what I did. And I'm not suggesting that we should be, always watching everyone with a second guess, but I didn't know what to look for. So my mindset was off. And so I thought, man, what am I going to do? After a sleepless night and thought about what my mentor taught me. And I said, okay, Jim. And I said, you have to buy me out. And that shocked him and also was going to ruin his plans. And, to this day, he has passed away since, but he never knew. I never told him the recording happened.
You didn't tell him?
I never, ever told him. Because there was nothing that was going to come out of that. I already knew he wasn't my business partner. I didn't want him. So I thought, so I told him, you got to buy me out. We have 7 days to do it. I'm going to be doing something else with my business mentor. So you have 7 days. We need to craft an agreement for you to buy out my 50%. We were equal partners. We both had half the company. And that shocked him. But in the meantime, we did reach the agreement. I did get a couple of payments, which quite candidly, I was surprised to even get, Linda. I thought the payments I got from him were a gift, I considered, because he was a taker. Even though I haven't identified that at that point as far as labeling a person's deeds and not the person. And here's what really happened. I went on to write this book called The Giver's Mindset. The next year, I earned twice what I earned in my previous year. And in the next 12 months, Linda, he filed for divorce, bankrupted the company that he bought from me. And literally, I saw him from a distance actually at an amusement park, and he looked like he aged. I knew it was him. He didn't see me, and I definitely saw him. He looked like he had aged 20 years.
Wow, interesting.
And everything in his life fell apart. And my life was just like doubled in prosperity across the board. So that's the beginning of defeatism, disruption, and destruction. The 3 Ds a taker will bring with them. And wisdom, wealth, and wellness, the 3 Ws of a giver. And so that was the first big defeat, if you will, and betrayal, because I didn't have the giver's mindset. I didn't even know what it was. And I wanted to learn about it because I didn't want this to happen again.
My goodness, you certainly turned lemons into lemonade with that one.
Whew, I got to tell you, let me tell you, the emotional roller coaster was something else. Hearing something third party is one thing, but when you hear it in their own words and you hear both people say,
ouch.
I thought, holy mackerel, there was an angel looking over me that day, because there's no other reasonable explanation. The odds are inconceivable of all of that happening just that way.
Indeed.
And so in that book, The Giver's Mindset, we talk about, the 25 do's. Be willing to do the thing to get the thing. Be willing to delay gratification to increase the return you get. Invest in giver relationships on an ongoing basis. So we list out, these are the 25 things that givers should always be doing and would want to be doing.
Wonderful.
And then
what was the second event that you had?
The second one was, I call that my lifestyle defeat. And I was very, very blessed, again, in business. I've always been very, very fortunate. And the following things I'm going to say are not to be braggadocious, but to share with you how fast something can come into our lives and how fast it can leave. At the ripe old age of 33 years old in 1989, that was the first year I earned and received and had $1 million in my pocket after I paid taxes. And that was 33 years old, 1989. In today's dollars, and just for the heck of it, I did I wonder what that is in today's dollars. And it's over $2 million after taxes, right? Business is going great. I had 2 personal aircraft. I became a commercial pilot because I didn't want to fly with other airplanes. So I flew myself and all over to meetings all over the U.S. I had a personal limo. I didn't drive myself. I had a personal valet and my own limo. At 33 years old, you can only imagine I felt like I was King Midas. Everything's perfect. How great can this be? The president of that company, I was paying him $1 million a year. I bought him as a company car, a Silver Spur Rolls Royce, as his own company car. And guess what? I was about ready to learn about something called greed.
Oh, shoot.
The $1 million I was paying him wasn't enough. In his mind, I can earn more than this. I can do everything he can do. I can buy myself a fleet of Rolls Royces. And he went through a systemic program. We had literally 33,000 people working for us in 20 countries. So this was not a small operation. And over the course of time, in a very cloak and dagger methodology, literally set out on a path to not only destroy the company, but yours truly as well. And that brought about, and I didn't realize till it came around later on, that there was a lifestyle thing I hadn't learned yet. What are the 30 habits of givers? And what are the 30 habits I began to identify because of this defeat, where all of a sudden all these things were gone. The limo was gone. The planes were gone. The $1 million a year was gone. You know what I mean? It was like this huge roller coaster. I thought, how could this be? I thought that, this was all going to last forever. And now it's all gone because of this thing called greed. And that was my second defeat. And that brought about the second book called The Giver's Lifestyle. And that's where, and developed what I call the quick checklist of, these are the 30 quick one-liner habits to be watching for that givers do and that takers do. And we should be watching for these things all of the time. And I've got to tell you, it was, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way looking in retrospect. And that led to, and this actually on the tails of this was the grand poobah of all defeats, the big one. And this is what happens when you have a taker agency in your life. My instance, my big defeat had to do with an entity that I'm sure all of your listeners are familiar with. They're called by 3 letters, the IRS.
Oh, shoot.
And over 10 years, literally a decade of audits that were nonstop because they said there's no way you could be earning all this money and not be doing something illegal. And I said, we're just really good at what we do. And it was in a time period where we had offices in other countries and everyone was thinking any successful company was socking away money. We were even going in other countries and doing depositions. And this thing just went on and on and on. They called all my company, all my vendors, all my customers, and just embroiled the company. And the bottom line was, I told my attorney, I said, they're going to kill me. I said, I said, cliches are cliches because they're usually true. And it is true. You can die by 10,000 little cuts. I mean, and it's going on. All day long, I'm dealing with these things and not taking care of business, not doing what needs to be done. I'm just stomping on this fire. So I told my attorney, I said, get me out of this. You figure out a way. So he said, well, you're not going to like the answer. And I said, what's the answer? He said, you're going to have to plead to something. I said, what? I said, I haven't done anything wrong. He said, you're going to have to plead to something and give them a pound of flesh and they'll go away. And I said, oh my God. So anyway, I pled guilty to impeding the IRS which means, by definition, over 10 years of audits, I confess I did not help them as much as I could have helped them in my audits.
Oh, wow.
That's it. Which, by the way, later on, the Supreme Court ruled they could not charge me with, but I already did the time, so I went to prison. And I went to a prison camp.
Really?
Yes.
For how
And
long?
it was a short stay, months. I mean, not like decades or anything like that. And the place I went, we actually asked to go there, and it's called a camp. And it's something else, let me tell you. It's in West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia is where I went. And the term Club Fed came from this place. It was listed by Forbes magazine. If you can imagine, they actually did an article on the top 10 places for white collar guys to do time. This was one of them. And Club Fed was a play that from Jane Pauley did an interview at Club Fed many years ago, and said, these people, these men there, because it's strictly for men in this camp, it's a federal camp, are living a resort lifestyle. There's a 9-hole golf course there. There's an Olympic swimming pool. It's a 500 plus acre estate with no fence, and no one ever leaves. And I can tell you, it's weird. Linda, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Stepford Wives. But it's a weird movie about, everything's like extra, unbelievably perfect. That's what it's like. Such a breathtakingly beautiful piece of property, 500 plus acres. The camp was maybe about 150, 175 acres. No fence. No fences anywhere. And you would not believe that was a prison camp unless someone told you and you realized it looks like everyone's wearing the same clothing. So you can't play golf there anymore, but I was at the golf course and the officers play golf there. The swimming pool is still there, but now they built a building over it and they have treadmills and pool tables in there over the top of it. But I was in the pool. It's still there. They built a building over top of it. So I did time at this place called Club Fed. And after I finished with my time, the IRS felt they had not gotten enough pound of flesh. And there's a thing that happens so frequently, they even have a name for it. It's called stacking. And they gave me a second case based on my first case. Now you said you're guilty, so now because of this, the income you earned has to be wrong. So I did time a second time.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. It was
same place?
And it was devastating and humiliating. And I thought, oh my God. And since then, I've made peace with the IRS, and I can share with you, and this is the stretch. Going to Club Fed is absolutely one of the top 10 best things that ever happened to me in my life.
Who'd have thunk?
Because being forced to unplug, not having TV except certain times, and you have to have a headset to wear it, and not having phone where you can be on for more than 15 minutes, and not having computer except to leave a quick email, and to literally unplug as you and I would know in normal life, and to write 1,209 pages, these 3 books, in longhand, in pencil, was something else. And to think about the thoughts, think about the events, and to put, with no distraction, how can I help other people to not go through these events? What do you have when you have a taker entity in your life? In my instance, it was the IRS. It doesn't have to be the IRS. It could be another business. There's many other instances that, I've met people that their stories are, we had a story there, Club Fed, that the moment you heard the most amazing story that was unbelievable, the next one you heard would be even more amazing, of what happened to this doctor, this attorney, this accountant, just one extraordinary after another. And what was really interesting, Linda, I met so many people that were so much freer at Club Fed than so many people that had never been to Club Fed.
Oh, that's interesting.
They were so much freer. And then that brought about my identification of what I call the 6 virtual prisons that people carry around with them, or that they're in, and they don't even know they're in them. And that's in the 3rd book, The Giver's Lifelong Learning. What are the 6 virtual prisons that people are in, and they don't even realize? And I can tell you, I was in at any one time, any one of the 6th, and I got the bonus geographical prison as a bonus. I went geography-wise, I left. And here's a side note that's very interesting. You know what was really astonishing to me, Linda?
What?
When I came back, I thought, oh man, how am I going to get back to society? People are just, I'm going to be like a leper. I mean, just, this guy in prison and he's evil. And it was astonishing to me that no one cared. And I proved to people, I said, watch this. I'm going to say that I did some prison time because of a problem with the IRS. It almost became a weird, twisted badge of honor. I'm still trying to figure it out. But they said, IRS, I hate those, and they usually have an expletive after that. And they said, well, here, let me show you this, and whatever. And we were off the subject. And what I learned was the following. Once someone hears your dirty, deep, dark secret, they don't care anymore. They have their own little things they got to be dealing with. And they say, well, they can never say, well, he's too good to be true. And there are all these things he says. They know the dirt. They've seen the dirty laundry. It's there. And then they quickly change gears because today, if you shake hands with 10 people, you just shook hands with someone that did some time.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is the number today.
Fascinating.
At any one time in the United States, there's over 2 million people that are doing time for one reason or another. It's extraordinary, the things you learn. But I can share with you that I thought, what a great way to get my story and my defeats across, to tell the story that, and when these things happen, it's not the end. In fact, if you choose to, if you say, I'll never give up, if you say, I'm going to keep rising up, if you say, I'm going to always overcome, guess what? It's exactly what happens.
I like that.
And every bit of it can happen. And I pray that my stories and my defeats become inspirations for other people that say, you know what? I can relate to that. I hear that. I understand that. Yeah, that's not the same, but it's the same. I got this happening in my life with this partner or this business associate or worker or coworker, family member. And I hope that they can relate to these things and they begin to realize I need to increase my giver-taker IQ. I need to increase my awareness. And there's my 3 defeats, Linda.
Wow. And by being willing to share those, that kind of helps you become authentic or real. And I think that that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure. And I get such happiness doing it because it's very freeing, by the way. It's very freeing. When it's all out there and it doesn't matter. And then on top of it, when you realize no one else cares anyway, they got their own problems. You go, oh man, and it is true. It is true anyway. It's one of the things we teach at Givers University, that all things come to light. There's no exceptions. All things, not some, not one, all things. And if we know up front that all things come to light, maybe we should consider what we're doing right now, because it's coming to light and there's no hiding it.
Right. And I would hope for the most part that when people find out who and what I really am, that it's a good thing.
Yes, exactly right. And to sort of close with, one gentleman asked me, he said, well, would you do it all over again? And I was forcibly struck because I'm a Walt Disney World fan, love Walt Disney, and I watched an interview and studied actually Walt Disney's life. A lot of people don't realize he actually had to leave the Disney Corporation for a whole year because he himself had a full-blown nervous breakdown.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, literally. And he says, I watched the interview of him live saying that, it's from the archives, that he literally, when he picked up the phone, would cry uncontrollably because of the stress. And he actually had to leave Disney. Walt Disney had to leave Disney for a whole year. And later on, when he was interviewed, when Snow White came out and they were interviewing Julie Andrews and him and, it was actually Mary Poppins. And they asked Walt, would you do it again? And today, the answer he gave has so much meaning for me, because I'll never forget the look on his face when he said it and what was behind it. He said, yes, I would do it again, but I sure hope I don't have to. and the look on his face, and I can think, oh my God, that sums it up for me. What a perfect way.
Truth.
And then subsequently, I saw an interview with a guy called J. Paul Getty. At that point, years ago, he was the world's richest man. And he was being interviewed, and they asked him a question, and it's pointed to the givers community that we should build around us. And they asked J. Paul Getty, and they said, J. Paul, if we took everything away from you today, he was in shipping and oil. They said, if we took away all your old oil holdings, all of your shipping, all of your ships, everything, if we took everything away from you today, could you do it again? And he didn't even hesitate. He looked right back at the interviewer and said, not only could I do it again, 12 months from today, it would be bigger than it is today. But I ask
Wow.
that you leave me only one thing. Only one thing.
And that is?
He said, leave me my organization. And I thought, wow, it really is important who we surround ourselves with, isn't it? And to give discernment and to become discerning, to increase our happiness, our productivity, our exceptionalism by having a giver community around us and respectfully distancing ourselves from the people who are going to bring with the 3 Ds.
Oh, wonderful. E.A., thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your stories with us today.
My pleasure.
In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Orison Swett Marden, an inspirational author and the founder of Success Magazine. He said, "We must give more in order to get more. It is in the generous giving of ourselves that produces the generous harvest." Today, I invite you to be a giver. See you next time on Linda's Corner.